since we talking about Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, since we talking about stables and groups, I also wanted to talk about another group. Now, this group is with AEW, but they were with WWE. And again, this is why I'm starting to get irritated, because it just seemed like WWE, of course, they're like at the top of the mountain when it comes to professional wrestling in terms of an organization. But I guess that doesn't mean that they're the best at writing storylines for professional wrestlers, because I'm not understanding even to this day. I'm confused. How did the Hurt Business end up in AEW? Can somebody please explain that to me? Can somebody leave me a comment and try to explain that to me? How are the Hurt Business in AEW? Like, I really didn't understand it even when they left. I never understood why we never got the Hurt Business back together in the WWE, because this group solidified itself during the pandemic. During the pandemic and the Thunderdome era with the WWE, it was hard to watch because of the pandemic. But the Hurt Business came in and they made it seem like it was business as usual. It made it seem like a professional wrestling program, and a good one at that. They turned nothing into something every time. How do you reward that by breaking up the group and never putting them back together again? I don't get that, because at least with Vince McMahon, I respect the fact that Vince McMahon pushed Bobby Lashley the way that he did. Bobby Lashley beating Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania 37, that was one of the greatest things that I saw, for me personally. I know the average wrestling fan probably didn't care that much about it, but for me, I actually thought that was a pretty cool thing to happen, especially since it happened with a submission, with the Hurt Lock, essentially a full Nelson. I remember at the time a lot of people had a lot of things to say about that, like the fact that how could they put over a champion at WrestleMania with a full Nelson? That's because you have a guy the caliber of Bobby Lashley that made that full Nelson a legitimate submission move. See what I'm saying? Because they're doing the same thing as a group. They're turning nothing into something. When they came together and made the Hurt Business, nobody saw that coming. And they made that something that was gold. It wasn't just an average group where they were doing, subpar segments. This group killed it every time they got on screen. Now, as promised, I said that one day I will do an episode where we touch on race in professional wrestling. We're not going to cover all of that today, but I will get into it a little bit, because that's the only other thing that I could see as to why the Hurt Business isn't in the WWE. I'm not saying WWE is racist, but I will say that they don't know how to handle black athletes. They don't know how to handle black professional wrestlers. And I dare anybody to try to argue that to me. Again, if you watching this show and you disagree with that, then let's have a conversation. Hit me in the comments and let's see, because no one could tell me any different. You know what I'm saying? It's not about them being racist at WWE, but clearly they don't have black people in position to write proper storylines for black professional wrestlers. Vince McMahon, I give him a lot of credit in the world, like I said a moment ago, because I appreciate that he even put the Hurt Business together. Even though it was for a limited time, I still appreciate that he gave us that. Back to the point with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, I think that professional wrestling is showing why Vince McMahon was the king for so long. Because as much as people said that he lost touch with the product, of course he lost touch a little bit. The man was 80 years old. What are we talking about right now? You know what I'm saying? Just the fact that he's almost 80 and was writing the storylines that he did write when they were successful, that says a lot about Vince McMahon. And he deserves to get the flowers for that. And that goes back to the Hurt Business. For him to be so out of touch the way that people said, he was able to put this group together, and this group did something positive for professional wrestling. My only knock on it was he didn't utilize the Hurt Business to its full potential. I never understood how come we never got the Hurt Business versus the Bloodline. We haven't seen too many black groups that had that level of class and style and dominance. This was the first time that I could remember seeing all of that put together in that way, because we can't say the Nation of Domination. That was nice to see a black stable at that time, but they still didn't present themselves the way that the Hurt Business was presenting themselves. Not no ghetto shit, not no corny generic shit. They came in there and looked at like professional athletes at the highest level. Every time you saw those guys on camera, they were the best dressed. It's rare that you see black athletes built that way in professional wrestling. And when you finally got a group like the Hurt Business, for some reason, you can't figure out a way to keep them on TV, because it's not like you had to think hard or work hard to come up with storylines for them. You dealing with a guy like MVP that's a legend in his own right. And a lot of people was already comparing him to Paul Heyman, and rightfully so. I mean, sure, Paul Heyman's been in the business longer than MVP, but that's still high praise for MVP, for fans to recognize that on the microphone and as a manager, MVP, he was bringing that level of professionalism to the product the way that a Paul Heyman would do. And you only get better with repetition. So the more that we saw MVP leading the Hurt Business on WWE TV, sky was the limit. MVP himself made a statement and said that he just wasn't seeing eye to eye with management. And again, that's why I love MVP and the Hurt Business, because they're professionals all the way around. He didn't come out and throw Triple H under the bus by name. But for me, I'm going to just say it, over here at Worldwide Classics, that's all that I heard. All that I heard was Triple H just didn't get it. Triple H just didn't understand how to use the Hurt Business, or he didn't want to. Because the last time we saw Bobby Lashley in WWE, he was with the Street Profits. And I was excited for that, because I thought the Street Profits was about to get the push that they needed. And we saw what happened with that. The same thing that I feel like is happening with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, ironically. It's ironic that I'm drawing that parallel, because the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley, that was one of the biggest disappointments I've ever seen in professional wrestling. How could something that had so much intrigue just go away like that? How could something with so much intrigue just fall flat that way? They never had a big angle. They never had any good stories, and they damn sure didn't have the matches that they needed to have when they put that group together. So not only did you break up the Hurt Business, but then you tried to give us some off-brand version of it with the Street Profits, and that's no disrespect to them, but it was how they were booked. It was how they were booked that made it seem generic. I think the first week or two, just like the Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker thing, it seemed promising. And I was hopeful, and I was happy, because I'm a Street Profit fan as well. Shout out to Dawkins. Shout out to Montez Ford. Last time I heard, he was from Chicago. So y'all know how I feel about Chicago people. I'm biased. So extra shout out to Montez Ford. So again, it's not about that. Whatever you put in front of them, they can knock that shit out the park. I don't have no doubt about it. The problem is they're not getting nothing put in front of them. They're just being lost in this weird world of professional wrestling, or this weird world of WWE, where people acting like they don't know how to book these athletes. I mean, why is this so complicated? But it's all good, because I guess at Worldwide Classic, this is what I'm here for. So eventually I'm going to have to do another fantasy booking just to get us back on the right path as professional wrestling fans, because this is a disaster. Let's just call it what it is. What's going on right now is a disaster. So back to it. It's hard for me to stay on one subject, because when I get to talking about one thing, it mirrors other mistakes that's happened in the past. We let the Hurt Business go, and we've never implemented a new group into the WWE. We broke up the Judgment Day and re-envisioned the Judgment Day in a way that is just dumb. Again, it's no disrespect to nobody in the Judgment Day, but this is not it. You know, again, I got a previous episode when I spoke on that. Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley, Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio. That core four was the Judgment Day, and they were making things happen organically. Is that what it is? WWE, when guys or girls over there, when they're getting an organic rise to the top, when they're organically getting the type of interest and engagement from the fans, then it seems like that's a problem to you guys or something. It's like if it didn't come from WWE, if the guys who work there and that's coming up with the storylines, the workers at WWE, if they're not coming up with these storylines, then it's like you guys don't want to push it. And that's crazy to me, because the best things happen organically. The best things in life happen organically and naturally. So you guys are trying to micromanage what professional wrestling fans are going to get, the level of entertainment we're going to receive when the talent is there. You guys have nothing but talent, and you guys let the Hurt Business go. And then shout out to them for reforming as the Hurt Syndicate and AEW. I don't really even watch AEW too tough these days, but I have been seeing the clips of the Hurt Syndicate, and I'm a true fan, so I'm going to continue to support regardless. So I support the Hurt Syndicate, and I've been watching what they've been doing with MJF. As I'm watching their most recent Wednesday Night Dynamite and the Hurt Business were interacting with MJF, all I could think about is exactly what I'm saying now. Like, what the hell was the WWE thinking about? The Hurt Syndicate is almost the only thing over there at AEW that looks like a high-class professional wrestling segment, because MVP is just bringing it. He's bringing it, just like I'm saying. Like, he's gold on the mic. And just his whole style and his IQ for professional wrestling is almost unmatched at this point. Because one thing as true wrestling fans that we know about AEW is it almost feels like a freelance organization, meaning like the wrestlers really have to be involved with their character work, because I don't think they have a suitable enough writing staff to get those wrestlers over either, if that make any sense. MVP, Bobby Lashley, and Shelton Benjamin had already been with the WWE for almost 10 years prior to the Hurt Business becoming a group. So even in that, it's just kind of confusing. These guys had already been with the company. Why did it take so long to understand that they could be great as a group? This goes back to my theory from earlier in this episode when I say that it seems like some of the things that WWE do is just out of a shock factor, like John Cena turning heel. Not that y'all actually was going to give the best storyline possible, but it was just the right thing to do at the time to shake everything up. Same thing with Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman. It seemed like the WWE just likes to give us these shock factors just to try to increase the engagement. And the same thing with the Hurt Business. This was the Thunderdome pandemic era. So can you kind of see the parallel? It's almost like they just needed to do something to try to keep fans involved at a difficult time in professional wrestling, which was the pandemic. And it's almost like y'all just took a chance with the Hurt Business versus y'all actually knew that those guys were talented enough to be in a dominant spot in the WWE. And now you guys are proving that by letting them go to AEW, where they're showing what they're capable of. If you notice, MJF is like their best homegrown talent over at AEW, and that's no disrespect to anybody else, but I think that's kind of obvious, right? MJF is the best AEW homegrown talent, and they always put the best people in the ring with MJF. So it's no secret why MJF is having these interactions with the Hurt Syndicate so early on. Is because AEW even knows the caliber of professional wrestlers they have with the Hurt Business, with the Hurt Syndicate. And so when I'm watching them interact with MJF, I'm just looking at the WWE like, are y'all really trying to insult my intelligence or professional wrestling fan and insult our intelligence? We never got Hurt Business versus Bloodline. We could have got Hurt Business versus Judgment Day. It's all different type of things that we could have did with the Hurt Business. Because another thing that the WWE is confusing me about is, what's the point of having groups and stables if we're not going to let them go to war? What's the point of having groups if they're not going to go to war with each other? I thought that was the whole point of even building up a group. And so eventually you could put those groups against each other, and we could have these Avenger level storylines or matches. You know what I'm saying? If that make any sense, we could have these big money matches amongst these power groups. But we haven't seen anything like that. We've had 2 war games for Survivor Series. For the past 2 years, Survivor Series has been war games. You guys are just throwing some people together as opposition for groups. Meaning that the first year of War Games being a Survivor Series, you had the Bloodline, and rightfully so, involved in that match. But you did not have them equal you did not have an equal caliber of a group to go against them. You just had guys that you threw together. Why do we continue to do stupid like that when you could have had an actual group in that cage with the bloodline, and we could have had something epic? We could have had something that we could have looked back on 10 years from now and just been grateful that we experienced this level of professional wrestling. We're not about to go back 10 years from now to see the bloodline versus a group of random guys just because we were seeing if Sami Zayn was going to be loyal to the bloodline or not. So not only did you have a Hurt Business in WWE and you had a bloodline, you actually had two different versions of a bloodline. You hear what I'm saying right now? Not only did you have the original bloodline, but then you had an alternate version of the bloodline. So you had two different bloodline groups that you could have put against the Hurt Business at some point. And most importantly, you could have just created other stables to go against the Hurt Business. Fans are all for it. So shout out to professional wrestling fans. I love when I see the comments and I'm seeing how much support people like Bobby Lashley get. I love to see the support that Swerve Strickland gets. I love to see that the fans are behind wrestlers and they're not worrying about color. They're just worrying about the substance and the character. So shout out to wrestling fans. Shout out to all fans of any sport or any genre that they're not seeing color, that we can just appreciate the art for what it is. Because when it comes to the powers to be, it's a completely different story. It's a completely different story. You guys' stories are so half-baked, and right now my irritation is just through the roof because I keep giving too much credit and I keep giving too much benefit of the doubt. If you could let a group like this go from WWE and then MVP makes the statement that him and management or creative just didn't see eye to eye, that's a pretty damning statement considering everything that we're seeing now, pre-WrestleMania and post-WrestleMania. So you got a generic group with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker and Paul Heyman, and then a group that you could have had in WWE that could have made some noise. They're over in AEW about to do what they can to get MJF to another level of superstardom. I wish all the best for the Hurt Syndicate over there at AEW, man. I hope you guys really just take you guys' career to the next level somehow. I hope somehow you guys just dominate AEW and Bobby Lashley is able to get in the ring with all of the high-powered wrestlers that they have at AEW. The Will Ospreays, the Kenny Omegas, all of the great wrestlers and talents that they do have at AEW. I hope that the Hurt Business are able to show the world what they were capable of. Because when I watch Hurt Syndicate at AEW, I really feel like I'm seeing a WWE segment. And I know that seems kind of silly, but for all of the flaws that WWE has, to me, they're still the mainstream when it comes to professional wrestling. So I always feel like they're still the major leagues. So when I see professional wrestling at its highest level, then I always compare it to a WWE event. So when I'm seeing Hurt Syndicate do their thing at AEW, it makes it feel like a WWE event. And that's a plus for AEW. That's a big positive for AEW because it's not like they're copying. It's not like AEW is trying to copy from WWE, but it's just the level of superstardom and the level of style. It's the level of superstardom and style that the Hurt Syndicate brings to AEW that makes AEW seem like that major league wrestling promotion. So again, shout out to the Hurt Syndicate. Shame on you, WWE.